Number 1. 1967 Chevrolet Chevelle, offered at $38,000 and currently located in Brewster, Massachusetts. In my opinion, this 1967 Chevelle is a solid example of a classic muscle car that focuses more on driving enjoyment than full show car perfection. The 1967 model year is already a popular choice among Chevrolet enthusiasts, and the Chevelle platform in general is one of the most recognizable names from the American muscle era. What immediately stands out is the 136 car designation and the presence of a big block 402 engine. In my view, that combination makes it more interesting than a standard small block setup, especially for someone who wants more power and presence on the road. The seller also mentions an $11,000 build on the motor, which suggests the engine has been upgraded or refreshed for performance and reliability. The listing describes the car as being in good condition and even usable as a daily driver if desired. In my opinion, that's an important detail because many classic muscle cars require constant attention, while this one seems to lean more toward practicality and regular use. Visually and mechanically, there isn't a lot of detailed information provided, but the overall impression is that this Chevelle has already been built and sorted enough to be enjoyed rather than sitting as a project. That makes it appealing for someone who wants to skip the long restoration process and go straight to driving. At the same time, since the listing is fairly brief, I think any potential buyer would still need to inspect the car closely, especially the body condition, frame integrity, and documentation for the engine build. Those details can make a big difference in long-term value. Overall, my opinion is that this 1967 Chevelle offers a straightforward muscle car experience with a strong big block setup and usable condition. It may not be a perfect show build, but it appears to be a ready-to-enjoy classic that still carries the raw character of the muscle car era. Number 2. 1965 Pontiac Grand Prix, offered at $30,000 and currently located in Machesney Park, Illinois. From my point of view, this Grand Prix is a strong example of Pontiac's mid-1960s personal luxury performance formula, where style, comfort, and V8 power all come together in a single package. It's not just a muscle car in the traditional sense, but more of a high-end cruiser with the performance edge. The first thing that stands out to me is the color combination. Fontaine blue with a matching blue interior gives the car a very period-correct and cohesive look. In my opinion, Pontiac did a great job in this era with colors that feel both bold and elegant at the same time, and this Grand Prix fits that character very well. Under the hood is a 389 cubic inch V8 with a 4-barrel carburetor. Personally, I think this is one of the key highlights of the car. The 389 is well known for its strong torque and smooth power delivery, and in a full-size Pontiac like the Grand Prix, it creates a relaxed but confident driving feel. It's not an aggressive track-style setup, but more of a powerful highway cruiser. I also like that the car is described as an air car, with cold AC. In my opinion, that detail adds a lot of real-world value because many classic cars either have non-functioning air conditioning or were never properly upgraded. Having cold AC makes the car much more usable, especially in warm weather driving. Another thing I notice is the list of upgrades and maintenance work. The aluminum radiator, heater core, fuel pump, steering box, front suspension work, and realignment all suggest that someone has invested time into making the car reliable and comfortable to drive. Personally, I see that as a big positive because it means the car isn't just cosmetic, it has been mechanically refreshed. The addition of Dynamat sound deadening also stands out to me. In my opinion, that's a thoughtful upgrade that improves driving comfort by reducing road noise and vibration, which is especially noticeable in older American full-size cars. The seller does mention some minor paint chips on the door edge, but honestly, I think that's expected for a driver-quality classic that has been enjoyed rather than stored away. At 144,000 miles, this is clearly a car that has seen real use, but the description suggests it has been maintained rather than neglected. The Coker Firestone Redline tires also give it a strong classic appearance. Personally, I think Redline tires help complete the vintage Pontiac look and add to the car's overall presentation without feeling overdone. At $30,000, I think this Grand Prix sits in a reasonable position depending on build quality and maintenance history. It's not a rare collector-only garage queen, but it also doesn't appear to be a neglected project. Instead, it feels like a well-sorted driver that blends originality with practical upgrades. Overall, my opinion is that this 1965 Pontiac Grand Prix offers a strong mix of classic styling, big block Pontiac character, and real-world usability. With cold AC, solid mechanical updates, and a clean, attractive color combination, it looks like a comfortable and enjoyable vintage cruiser that can still be driven regularly without losing its classic charm. Number 3. 1967 Ford Galaxy, offered at $15,000 and currently located in Fayetteville, North Carolina. In my opinion, this 1967 Ford Galaxy is a straightforward classic cruiser that focuses more on solid usability and traditional V8 character than on high-end restoration or performance modifications. From the description, it comes across as a car that has been kept in respectable running condition rather than fully rebuilt or extensively customized. The most important detail here is the strong V8 engine. While the listing does not specify which V8 it is, my perspective is that the Galaxy platform was always designed to handle torque-rich engines comfortably, and even in stock form these cars tend to deliver a smooth and confident driving experience. In a full-size Ford like this, the emphasis is usually less about speed and more about effortless cruising and highway comfort. The mention of a solid body is also a key point in my opinion. With vehicles from the 1960s, structural condition often matters more than cosmetic presentation because rust and hidden repairs can become expensive problems later. A solid body suggests the car has likely avoided the worst of long-term corrosion, which is always a positive sign in this era of American classics. I also find the note about a clean interior interesting. Even though the description is brief, a presentable interior in a nearly 60-year-old vehicle usually indicates that the car has not been heavily neglected or stripped down. In my experience, interior condition often reflects how a car has been treated overall, so this is a meaningful detail. The intact chrome is another subtle but important factor. On classic Fords like the Galaxy, chrome trim is a big part of the car's visual identity. When it is complete and in good condition, the car tends to retain much more of its original presence and period-correct styling. Missing or heavily pitted chrome can quickly take away from the overall appeal, so its presence here is definitely a positive. From a usage standpoint, the seller describes the car as either a weekend cruiser or an easy project. In my opinion, that is a realistic way to position it. It likely sits in that middle category where it is drivable as is, but still offers room for improvement if the next owner wants to invest more time and money into refinement. At the $15,000 asking price, I would personally view this Galaxy as an entry-level classic full-size Ford option. It is not presented as a rare performance model or a fully restored collector piece, but rather as a usable vintage car with a strong V8 and enough condition to enjoy immediately. Overall, my opinion is that this 1967 Ford Galaxy appears to be a simple, honest American classic that prioritizes driving enjoyment and basic preservation over perfection. For someone who appreciates the relaxed feel of a big V8 Ford Cruiser and is comfortable with a car that may still have minor imperfections, it seems like a reasonable and approachable option in today's classic car market. Number 4. 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS Clone, offered at $37,000 and currently located in Hamburg, New York. From my perspective, this is one of those classic muscle cars that is built more for the driving experience than for strict originality. The 1970 Chevelle is already one of the most iconic body styles in American performance history, and even as a clone, it still carries that aggressive stance and strong road presence that enthusiasts are drawn to. The first thing that stands out to me is the drivetrain combination. A new 350 crate engine paired with a 4-speed muslce manual transmission is a very solid setup for a street-driven classic. In my opinion, this is exactly the kind of configuration that makes a muscle car fun without being overly complicated or difficult to maintain. The crate engine also suggests reliability and consistent performance, which is a major advantage over older, worn-out original motors. I also like the inclusion of a mild camshaft and Flowmaster 3-inch exhaust system. To me, those two upgrades usually go hand in hand in shaping the personality of the car. The mild cam gives it a slightly more aggressive idle and throttle response, while the Flowmaster exhaust enhances that classic deep V8 sound that people expect from a Chevelle. It's not overdone, but it's enough to give the car some attitude. The 10-bolt rear end is another practical component. While it may not be as heavy-duty as a 12-bolt setup, it's still commonly used in street applications and generally holds up well behind a moderate-power 350 engine. For a daily-driven or weekend-driven muscle car, it's a reasonable and serviceable choice. From a usability standpoint, I see this Chevelle as a turnkey driver. The seller describes it as starting reliably, running well, and being enjoyable to drive regularly. Personally, I think that's one of the most important qualities in a classic car. A lot of builds look impressive on paper but aren't actually driven often. This one seems to lean more toward being used and enjoyed rather than stored and preserved. Visually, the red exterior with a black interior is a classic muscle car combination that never really goes out of style. Even though the paint has some blemishes, as mentioned by the seller, I don't necessarily see that as a deal-breaker for this type of car. In fact, for a driver-quality Chevelle, a few imperfections often reinforce the idea that it's meant to be enjoyed on the road rather than treated as a museum piece. The interior being described as solid with good carpet and headliner is also a positive sign. Those are the areas that usually make the biggest difference in day-to-day driving comfort, and it sounds like this car is already in a decent, usable condition inside. At $37,000, this Chevelle SS clone sits in a competitive space where buyers are essentially paying for a complete, running classic with desirable styling and a manual transmission rather than factory originality. In my opinion, SS clones can still offer a very satisfying ownership experience because they deliver much of the look and feel of an SS without the premium cost of a true matching numbers car. Overall, my opinion is that this 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS clone represents a straightforward, enjoyable muscle car built for driving rather than collecting. It has the right engine, the right transmission, a strong visual identity, and enough usability to be considered a real weekend or occasional daily driver. For someone who values the experience of driving a classic Chevelle more than the pursuit of originality, this looks like a solid, honest, and fun option that delivers exactly what it promises: simple V8 power, manual transmission engagement, and classic American muscle character. Number 5. 1966 Dodge Coronet Convertible, Ragtop, offered at $20,500 and currently located in Caledonia, Wisconsin. In my opinion, this is a very appealing classic muscle-era cruiser because it combines open-top driving with a relatively simple and durable drivetrain setup. The 1966 Coronet sits in that sweet spot where Dodge was still producing full-size performance and comfort cars before emissions regulations and downsizing changed the industry later in the decade. The first thing that stands out is the fact that it is a convertible. In the classic car world, ragtop versions almost always carry more desirability than their hardtop or sedan counterparts simply because of the driving experience they offer. A 1960s American convertible is less about speed and more about presence: long hood, chrome details, V8 rumble, and open-air cruising. Under the hood, this car is equipped with a 361 cubic inch big block V8 paired with an automatic transmission. In my opinion, that is a solid and well-balanced setup for a car like this. The 361 doesn't get as much attention as the 383 or 440 engines, but it still delivers strong low-end torque and a smooth driving character. For a weekend cruiser, it's more than enough power to feel authentic without being overwhelming. One detail I find particularly important is that the car has had the same owner for the past 30 years. Long-term ownership often suggests consistent maintenance and a level of care that short-term ownership cars may not always have. It doesn't guarantee perfection, but it does add a layer of confidence that the vehicle wasn't repeatedly flipped or neglected. The seller describes the car as running and driving well, which is another strong positive. A classic convertible that is already mechanically functional can save a new owner thousands of dollars in immediate repairs. Combined with the note that it is an older restoration, it suggests the car has already gone through at least one major phase of cosmetic or mechanical improvement in the past. From a styling perspective, the 1966 Dodge Coronet has a very classic mid-1960s American design. It's not as aggressive as later muscle cars, but it has a clean, straightforward presence with just enough chrome and body shaping to give it personality. In convertible form, it becomes even more visually striking, especially when the top is down. At $20,500, I would consider this car to be positioned in the mid-range of the classic convertible market. It's not inexpensive, but it also doesn't seem overpriced for a running, driving V8 convertible with long-term ownership history. The value here is less about rarity and more about usability and enjoyment. If I were evaluating this car as a potential buyer, I would want to inspect the quality of the older restoration and check for typical issues such as rust in the frame, suspension wear, and the condition of the convertible top mechanism. Those are often the most expensive areas to repair on cars of this era. Overall, my impression is that this 1966 Dodge Coronet convertible is a strong example of a traditional American weekend cruiser. It offers V8 power, open-top driving, long-term ownership history, and an honest presentation as an older restored driver rather than a perfect show car. For someone who wants to enjoy the classic muscle era experience without stepping into extreme collector pricing, this Coronet appears to be a very enjoyable and balanced option. Number 6. 1967 Mercury Cougar S-Code, offered at $22,500 and currently located in Hudson, New Hampshire. In my opinion, this 1967 Mercury Cougar S-Code is one of the more underrated classics from the muscle car era. While it often sits in the shadow of Mustangs from the same period, the Cougar actually offers a more refined and slightly upscale take on Ford's pony car platform, especially in higher performance S-Code form. What stands out to me immediately is the factory 390 big block engine. In my view, this is the heart of the car and what gives it its real character. The 390 V8 is known for strong torque and a solid power delivery, making it a great match for a comfortable but still powerful classic cruiser. Paired with an automatic transmission, it seems set up for relaxed driving rather than aggressive track use. The seller mentions that the car shows around 67,000 original miles, which is a positive indicator if accurate. Lower mileage examples like this often suggest the car hasn't been heavily abused and may have retained more of its original structure and components over time. From a usability standpoint, the listing notes new brakes and good tires, which in my opinion are important because they suggest the car is already somewhat road-ready. The dual exhaust setup also adds a bit of personality, giving the Cougar a more aggressive tone without changing its original character too much. As a driver-quality car, this Cougar appears to be positioned more for enjoyment than for show competition. It's not described as a fully restored or heavily modified example, but rather something that can be driven and appreciated as is. That kind of honesty often appeals to buyers who want to actually use their classic cars instead of just storing them. Overall, my opinion is that this 1967 Mercury Cougar S-Code offers a strong balance of originality, usability, and classic V8 performance. It may not be the flashiest muscle car on the market, but it delivers a comfortable and enjoyable driving experience with the added bonus of being a true big block Ford product from the golden era. Number 7. 1979 Lincoln Town Coupe, offered at $13,500 and currently located in Peru, Illinois. From my point of view, this Lincoln is a classic example of late 1970s American luxury, where the focus was less on performance and more on comfort, space, and smooth highway cruising. It's not a muscle car or a sporty coupe, but rather a full-size personal luxury car designed to deliver a quiet and relaxed driving experience. The first thing that stands out to me is the condition. A reported 26,000 miles, 2-owner history, and all original configuration is actually quite impressive for a vehicle of this age. In my opinion, low-mileage survivors like this are becoming increasingly rare, especially in full-size luxury cars that were often used extensively when new. I also like the color combination of white exterior with the blue interior. Personally, I think this pairing fits the Lincoln character very well. It gives the car a calm, elegant appearance that matches its luxury-focused design language. It's the kind of color scheme that feels very period-correct for the late 1970s. Under the hood is the 6.6L 400 cubic inch V8, paired with an automatic transmission. In my opinion, this drivetrain is not about speed, but about effortless cruising. The power delivery is likely smooth and relaxed, which is exactly what Lincoln buyers expected from a town coupe in this era. One of the biggest positives for me is the claim that the car is rust-free and has no accident history or paint work. Personally, I always consider rust condition one of the most important factors in classic American cars, especially from the 1970s, so a clean body adds significant value in my view. The seller also mentions that the car recently received an oil change, distributor cap, rotor, and a full detail with ceramic coating. In my opinion, that shows the car has been actively maintained rather than just parked and forgotten. Small maintenance items like that help preserve long-term reliability. There are a few minor issues noted, such as a frayed driver seatbelt, an intermittent power antenna, and an AC system that needs a recharge. Personally, I see these as relatively small and expected issues for a car of this age, especially one that has been driven and enjoyed rather than restored. At $13,500, I think this Lincoln sits in an interesting position. It's not a high-performance collector car, but it offers something different: originality, low mileage, and full-size luxury comfort at a relatively affordable entry point. Overall, my opinion is that this 1979 Lincoln Town Coupe is a well-preserved classic luxury cruiser that prioritizes comfort, originality, and smooth driving over performance. With its low mileage, rust-free condition, and clean presentation, it looks like the kind of car that can be enjoyed casually while still feeling special every time it's driven. Number 8. 1966 Ford Mustang Coupe 2D, offered at $38,500 and currently located in Palmyra, New York. In my opinion, this 1966 Mustang represents a well-executed restomod build that prioritizes performance, drivability, and comfort over strict factory originality. Rather than aiming to be a numbers-matching collector piece, it appears to be a thoughtfully upgraded classic designed for modern road use while still preserving the iconic Mustang appearance. The most significant highlight, in my view, is the newly built 347-stroker engine. In a lightweight chassis like the mid-1960s Mustang, a 347-stroker provides a substantial boost in power and torque compared to the original small-block options. This kind of engine setup typically delivers strong acceleration and a much more aggressive driving feel, making the car significantly more exciting to drive than a stock example. Paired with the 4R70W automatic transmission, the drivetrain combination suggests a clear focus on usability. From my perspective, this transmission choice is a smart upgrade because it offers improved highway cruising ability, better shift quality, and increased durability compared to older factory automatics. It also makes the car far more comfortable in modern traffic conditions. Another major improvement is the coilover front suspension system combined with a front disc brake conversion. In my opinion, these upgrades dramatically change the driving dynamics of a classic Mustang. Coilovers improve handling responsiveness and stance, while disc brakes provide much more reliable stopping power than the original drum setup. Together, they make the car feel more controlled and safer at higher speeds. The inclusion of air conditioning is another important detail. While it might not seem like a performance upgrade, it significantly enhances real-world usability, especially in warmer climates. For many buyers, having a classic Mustang that is both powerful and comfortable is a major advantage over more traditional builds. Inside, the new TMI seats suggest a refreshed interior with improved comfort and modern materials. In my experience, interior upgrades like this often make a big difference in how enjoyable a classic car is to drive on longer trips. It indicates that attention was paid not only to performance but also to driver comfort. The mention of dual exhaust exiting through the rear valance also adds to the overall character of the car. In my opinion, exhaust tone is a big part of the classic Mustang experience, and a properly set up dual exhaust system on a stroker V8 usually delivers a deep and aggressive sound that matches the performance upgrades. The seller notes that the paint is driver quality, which I actually see as a realistic and honest description. It suggests that the car is meant to be driven and enjoyed rather than stored as a show-only vehicle. In many cases, this kind of presentation aligns well with restomod builds, where mechanical improvements take priority over flawless exterior finishes. The fact that the engine and transmission were built by a known shop also adds some level of confidence in the quality of the work, although as always, proper inspection and documentation would be important before making a purchase decision. Overall, my opinion is that this 1966 Ford Mustang Coupe is a strong Restomod-style classic that focuses heavily on performance and drivability. The 347-stroker engine, modern automatic transmission, upgraded suspension, disc brakes, and refreshed interior create a package that is clearly intended for real-world enjoyment rather than strict originality. For someone who wants the classic Mustang look combined with significantly improved power and handling, this appears to be a well-rounded and appealing build. Number 14, 1962 Chevrolet Impala, offered at $43,000 and currently located in New Lenox, Illinois. From my perspective, this is one of those early 1960s Impalas that blends classic American styling with a heavily modified modern cruising setup. The 1962 Impala already has a very distinct look with its clean lines, chrome accents, and low, wide stance. But this particular example takes that foundation and transforms it into more of a custom street cruiser. The first thing that stands out to me is the full air ride suspension system. In my opinion, this completely changes the character of the car. Instead of sitting at a fixed ride height like a traditional classic, this Impala has the ability to adjust its stance depending on driving conditions or personal preference. That gives it a very different personality compared to a stock restoration, leaning more toward the modern custom or show car scene. Power comes from a 327 V8 paired with a 4-speed manual transmission. Personally, I think this is a strong and balanced combination for a car like this. The 327 has always been known as a smooth and responsive small block engine, and when paired with a manual gearbox, it gives the driver a much more engaging experience than an automatic cruiser setup. What I also find interesting is the level of supporting modifications that have been added to match the air ride system and overall build. The inclusion of power steering and power brakes makes the car significantly easier to drive, especially given the weight and size of a full-size early 60s Impala. In my view, these are essential upgrades for a car that is intended to be driven regularly rather than just displayed. The chassis and handling components also suggest that this is more than just a cosmetic build. The sway bars and panhard bar help improve stability, especially when the air suspension is adjusted. The addition of bump stops to prevent tire contact with the wheel wells shows attention to detail in ensuring the system operates safely and reliably at different ride heights. Cooling and engine management upgrades such as the aluminum radiator with fan and shroud are also practical additions. Air ride cars often encourage more relaxed cruising, but proper cooling ensures the vehicle can handle extended drives without overheating issues. From a usability standpoint, I also like the inclusion of modern gauges, including oil pressure, fuel level, battery voltage, and a vintage-style sun tachometer. These give the driver more visibility into the car's condition while still maintaining a classic aesthetic inside the cabin. The interior upgrades, including Dynamat sound deadening and new weather stripping, suggest that comfort and drivability were important priorities in this build. These are the kinds of improvements that make a big difference during longer drives, even if they are not always immediately visible. The LED headlight conversion hidden inside the original style buckets is another thoughtful touch in my opinion. It allows the car to retain its vintage appearance while improving nighttime visibility and safety. Aesthetically, the black exterior paired with a red interior is one of the most iconic combinations for a classic Impala. It gives the car a strong visual identity and fits well with the aggressive stance created by the air ride system. At $43,000, I see this Impala as sitting in the custom cruiser category rather than a factory restoration market. It is clearly not aimed at purists looking for original specifications, but instead at enthusiasts who appreciate modified classics that can be adjusted, personalized, and driven with modern comfort in mind. Overall, my opinion is that this 1962 Chevrolet Impala represents a well-thought-out custom build that focuses on both style and drivability. The combination of air ride suspension, manual transmission, V8 power, and supporting upgrades creates a car that is designed to be experienced rather than simply preserved. For someone who enjoys the custom classic scene and wants a standout early 60s Impala with both visual impact and driving flexibility, this example looks like a strong and well-documented build with a clear purpose behind its modifications. Number 10, 1971 Lincoln Mark III, offered at $17,500 and currently located in Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. In my opinion, this is one of the more complete and transparently presented luxury classics in this group. The Mark III sits in that distinctive early 1970s Lincoln era where American luxury cars were large, heavily styled, and built primarily for comfort rather than performance. Even today, they carry a strong presence simply due to their size, long hood proportions, and signature Continental styling cues. The first thing that stands out is the ownership history and usage. The seller has owned the car for about 12 years and notes that it came from Florida originally. That detail matters because Florida cars often avoid the heavy rust issues common in northern climates. Combined with the claim of no visible rust and only minor cosmetic bubbling, this suggests a relatively well-preserved example for its age. Mechanically, the car is powered by Ford's 460 cubic inch V8 paired with a C6 automatic transmission. In my opinion, this is one of the most durable big block combinations Ford ever produced. The focus here is not performance in a modern sense, but effortless torque and smooth highway cruising. A properly running Mark III with this setup feels less like a sporty car and more like a floating road cruiser, which is exactly what Lincoln intended. What really adds credibility to this listing is the long list of maintenance and upgrades. Over the ownership period, the seller has addressed major systems including brakes, radiator, transmission, steering components, exhaust repair, and interior restoration work. A new transmission and rebuilt steering components, in particular, are significant because those are among the more expensive repairs on a vehicle of this size and age. The interior improvements also stand out. Replacing seat inserts, rebuilding driver's seat foam, installing new carpet, and updating the audio system all contribute to making the cabin more comfortable and usable without completely removing its original character. The Mark III interior design is already known for its luxury focus, and these updates seem to preserve that feel while improving condition. One of the most interesting aspects of this listing is how openly the seller discusses its imperfections. Issues such as non-functioning rear windows, a partially working power seat, an inaccurate speedometer, a non-working gas gauge, and minor body bubbling are all clearly disclosed. In my view, that level of honesty is a positive sign because it helps set realistic expectations for the next owner. The cosmetic situation appears to be a mix of good presentation with some developing issues. The paint still shines, and prior repair work on the quarter panel reportedly blends well, but there are signs of bubbling near the rear tires, trunk edge, and areas associated with prior roof work. While not unusual for a vehicle of this era, it does indicate that ongoing attention may eventually be needed to keep the body in top condition. From a driving perspective, this Lincoln Mark III is not about agility or speed. It is about comfort, smoothness, and highway cruising. These cars were designed to isolate the driver from the road, and when properly maintained, they deliver exactly that experience: quiet, relaxed, and heavily assisted driving with minimal effort. At $17,500, I think the pricing reflects a mid-tier condition classic luxury coupe. It is not a fully restored collector-grade example, but it is also far from a neglected project. The combination of long-term ownership, mechanical investment, and functional drivability adds meaningful value. Overall, my impression is that this 1971 Lincoln Mark III is a well-used but well-maintained classic luxury cruiser. It offers the signature 460 V8 experience, a comfortable and largely refreshed interior, and a level of transparency from the seller that is often missing in older car listings. While it does have cosmetic and electrical quirks typical of early 1970s luxury cars, it still appears to be a very usable and enjoyable example of Lincoln's flagship personal luxury coupe era. Number 11. 1966 Chevrolet Caprice, offered at $38,000 to $42,000 and currently located in Butler, Indiana. In my opinion, this 1966 Caprice represents one of those classic full-size Chevrolets that quietly delivers a lot more performance and presence than many people expect. While it may not always get the same attention as a Chevelle or Camaro, the Caprice in SS-style configuration with a big block setup has its own strong appeal among classic American car enthusiasts. What immediately stands out to me is the 396 big block engine paired with a turbo 400 transmission and console floor shifter. In my view, that combination is a proven and durable drivetrain setup, offering both strong torque and comfortable highway cruising capability. It's the kind of setup that makes a heavy full-size car feel much more capable than its size would suggest. The listing describes this car as a survivor with around 103,500 miles, which I think adds character rather than taking anything away from it. Survivor cars often show their history honestly, and for many collectors, that originality is more valuable than a heavily restored example. Another strong point is the rear end setup, featuring a 12-bolt posy with 3.31 gearing. In my opinion, this is a very balanced configuration, enough performance for acceleration while still being manageable for regular driving. Combined with new wheels and tires, it suggests the car is already set up to be driven and enjoyed. The fact that the car came from Florida is also worth noting, as southern cars often have a better chance of avoiding severe rust issues. That can make a significant difference in long-term structural condition, especially for full-size GM cars of this era. On the practical side, the seller mentions that everything works except for the wiper motor. In my opinion, that's a relatively minor issue compared to what many classic cars require, and it's the kind of repair that doesn't usually affect drivability or enjoyment in a major way. Overall, my opinion is that this 1966 Chevrolet Caprice offers a strong combination of big block power, classic full-size comfort, and survivor authenticity. It may not be a flashy show build, but it appears to be a solid, usable American cruiser with plenty of V8 character and long-distance driving potential. Number 12, 1978 Chrysler Newport Brougham, offered at $14,000 and currently located in Port Huron, Michigan. From my point of view, this Chrysler represents a classic example of late 1970s American full-size luxury cruising, a period when comfort, size, and effortless V8 power were the main priorities. It's not a performance-focused muscle car, but more of a smooth highway cruiser built for relaxed driving and long-distance comfort. The first thing that stands out to me is the low mileage, reportedly around 33,000 to 37,000 miles. In my opinion, that's a significant detail for a car of this age, especially a full-size Chrysler that likely spent most of its life on the road when new. Low-mileage examples like this are becoming harder to find, particularly in solid, usable condition. I also like the overall presentation of the car as a two-door Brougham model. Personally, I think the Brougham trim gives the Newport a more upscale and formal appearance, with a focus on comfort and style rather than sportiness. The gray exterior and matching gray interior create a very classic, understated luxury look that fits the era well. Under the hood is a 400 cubic inch big block V8, paired with an automatic transmission. In my opinion, this setup is all about torque and smooth cruising rather than speed. The car is designed to glide down the road comfortably, and that's exactly the kind of driving experience these full-size Chryslers are known for. Another strong point is the list of recent maintenance and replacements. New tires, brakes, fuel system, radiator, battery, ignition components, and more suggest that the car has been actively refreshed for reliable use. Personally, I see this as a big advantage because it reduces the immediate cost of ownership and makes the car more road-ready right away. The addition of air conditioning also increases its usability, especially for summer cruising. In my opinion, muslce is one of those features that can significantly change how often a classic car actually gets driven, particularly in warmer climates. The seller also emphasizes that the car is ready for summer cruising, which, from my perspective, matches exactly what this type of vehicle is meant for. It's not intended to be a track car or a show-only collector piece, but rather a comfortable classic you can actually enjoy on the road. At $14,000, I think this Chrysler Newport sits in a reasonable range for a low-mileage, well-equipped full-size classic. It may not have the collector appeal of a muscle car, but it offers a different kind of value, comfort, originality, and an easy driving experience. Overall, my opinion is that this 1978 Chrysler Newport Brougham is a relaxed and comfortable vintage cruiser with strong big block power, low mileage, and solid recent maintenance. It's the kind of classic that prioritizes smooth driving and comfort, making it ideal for someone who wants a laid-back, full-size American car to enjoy on the weekends or during long summer drives. Number 13, 1965 Buick Skylark Sedan, offered at $12,500 and currently located in Green Bay, Wisconsin. In my opinion, this 1965 Buick Skylark is a solid example of a clean, lightly modified classic that focuses more on usability and originality than performance upgrades or flashy customization. It sits in that interesting middle ground where the car is old enough to have real vintage character, but still presented in a way that suggests it can be enjoyed without major restoration work. One of the most notable points is the reported 40,000 original miles. If that mileage is accurate, it immediately places this Skylark in the category of low-mileage survivor cars, which are becoming harder to find as time passes. From my perspective, low-mileage classics often carry a different kind of appeal, not necessarily because they are rare or high-performance, but because they preserve a more authentic snapshot of how the car originally existed. The Buick 310 V8, as described in the listing, commonly associated with Buick's 300-based Wildcat variant, is an interesting engine choice. In my opinion, Buick V8s from this era are often underrated compared to Chevrolet small blocks or Ford the 5th 8S, yet they are known for strong torque delivery and smooth operation. For a sedan like this Skylark, that kind of engine character makes a lot of sense, as it prioritizes relaxed cruising over aggressive performance. The fact that the engine is described as running strong is important, especially for a vehicle of this age. While the listing does not go into extensive mechanical detail, a properly functioning V8 combined with an automatic drivetrain typically means the car is already in a usable condition rather than being a long-term project. Another positive detail is the original interior. In my opinion, preserving original interior components is one of the most valuable aspects of classic car ownership. Even if the exterior has been repainted, maintaining the factory interior helps retain the car's authenticity and period-correct feel. It also suggests that the vehicle has not been heavily altered or stripped down over time. The repaint done approximately 10 years ago is another factor worth noting. While it may not be a recent restoration, a decade-old repaint can still present well if it was done properly and maintained. From my perspective, this places the car in the older cosmetic refresh category rather than a freshly restored showpiece, which may appeal to buyers who prefer a more natural, aged classic look. The mention of new tires installed in 2023 is a practical but important detail. It indicates that the car is not sitting on outdated rubber, which is especially relevant for safety and drivability in older vehicles. Small updates like this often reflect a level of ongoing care rather than neglect. Stylistically, the 1965 Skylark sedan is not as aggressively styled as muscle-era cars, but that is part of its appeal. In my opinion, it represents a more refined and understated side of mid-1960s American automotive design. It's the type of car that would have been used for comfortable daily transportation in its era, and that identity still comes through today. Overall, my opinion is that this 1965 Buick Skylark sedan appears to be an honest, lightly refreshed classic that emphasizes originality, comfort, and usability. The low-mileage claim, original interior, running V8, and general presentation suggest a car that can be enjoyed without needing major investment up front. It may not be a high-performance or highly collectible muscle car, but it offers a calm, classic driving experience with a strong sense of period authenticity, something that can be just as rewarding for the right kind of enthusiast. Number 14, 1962 Chevrolet Impala, offered at $43,000 and currently located in New Lenox, Illinois. From my perspective, this is one of those early 1960s Impalas that blends classic American styling with a heavily modified modern cruising setup. The 1962 Impala already has a very distinct look with its clean lines, chrome accents, and low, wide stance, but this particular example takes that foundation and transforms it into more of a custom street cruiser. The first thing that stands out to me is the full air ride suspension system. In my opinion, this completely changes the character of the car. Instead of sitting at a fixed ride height like a traditional classic, this Impala has the ability to adjust its stance depending on driving conditions or personal preference. That gives it a very different personality compared to a stock restoration, leaning more toward the modern custom or show car scene. Power comes from a 327 V8 paired with a 4-speed manual transmission. Personally, I think this is a strong and balanced combination for a car like this. The 327 has always been known as a smooth and responsive small block engine, and when paired with a manual gearbox, it gives the driver a much more engaging experience than an automatic cruiser setup. What I also find interesting is the level of supporting modifications that have been added to match the air ride system and overall build. The inclusion of power steering and power brakes makes the car significantly easier to drive, especially given the weight and size of a full-size early 60s Impala. In my view, these are essential upgrades for a car that is intended to be driven regularly rather than just displayed. The chassis and handling components also suggest that this is more than just a cosmetic build. The sway bars and panhard bar help improve stability, especially when the air suspension is adjusted. The addition of bump stops to prevent tire contact with the wheel wells shows attention to detail in ensuring the system operates safely and reliably at different ride heights. Cooling and engine management upgrades such as the aluminum radiator with fan and shroud are also practical additions. Air ride cars often encourage more relaxed cruising, but proper cooling ensures the vehicle can handle extended drives without overheating issues. From a usability standpoint, I also like the inclusion of modern gauges, including oil pressure, fuel level, battery voltage, and a vintage-style sun tachometer. These give the driver more visibility into the car's condition while still maintaining a classic aesthetic inside the cabin. The interior upgrades, including Dynamat sound deadening and new weather stripping, suggest that comfort and drivability were important priorities in this build. These are the kinds of improvements that make a big difference during longer drives, even if they are not always immediately visible. The LED headlight conversion hidden inside the original style buckets is another thoughtful touch in my opinion. It allows the car to retain its vintage appearance while improving nighttime visibility and safety. Aesthetically, the black exterior paired with a red interior is one of the most iconic combinations for a classic Impala. It gives the car a strong visual identity and fits well with the aggressive stance created by the air ride system. At $43,000, I see this Impala as sitting in the custom cruiser category rather than a factory restoration market. It is clearly not aimed at purists looking for original specifications, but instead at enthusiasts who appreciate modified classics that can be adjusted, personalized, and driven with modern comfort in mind. Overall, my opinion is that this 1962 Chevrolet Impala represents a well-thought-out custom build that focuses on both style and drivability. The combination of air ride suspension, manual transmission, V8 power, and supporting upgrades creates a car that is designed to be experienced rather than simply preserved. For someone who enjoys the custom classic scene and wants a standout early 60s Impala with both visual impact and driving flexibility, this example looks like a strong and well-documented build with a clear purpose behind its modifications. Number 15, 1965 Oldsmobile 98, offered at $1,500 and currently located in Bellingham, Massachusetts. In my opinion, this is a very typical full-size American luxury project from the mid-1960s, big, heavy, comfortable cars that were built to prioritize smooth cruising over anything resembling performance. The Oldsmobile 98 sat at the top of Oldsmobile's lineup at the time, so even in a non-running condition, it still carries a certain presence and historical appeal. The first major detail here is that the car does not run. That immediately places it in the project category rather than the driver category. However, the seller does describe it as a solid restoration project, which suggests that the body may still be in a restorable condition. With cars of this era, especially full-size GM models, structural condition is usually the deciding factor in whether a restoration is realistic or financially overwhelming. One positive aspect is the implied completeness. While the listing is brief, there is no mention of missing major components, which often becomes a serious issue with abandoned classics. A complete but non-running car is generally more desirable than a partially disassembled one because it gives the next owner a reference point for restoration. The Oldsmobile 98 itself is an important part of American automotive history. In 1965, It represented one of the most comfortable and well-equipped vehicles available from General Motors. These cars were known for their large V8 engines, smooth automatic transmissions, and soft, highway-focused suspension. Even today, they are remembered as true land yachts of the American road. At $1,500, the asking price is clearly aimed at someone willing to take on a serious long-term project. Restoration costs on a vehicle of this size can escalate quickly, especially when mechanical systems, braking components, fuel systems, and interior restoration are all needed. Because of that, the value here is really tied to the condition of the body and frame, which are not detailed in the listing. One interesting point is the title situation. The seller states there is no title, but there is a previous registration from a non-titled state. In many cases, that can help simplify the process of obtaining a new title, but it still depends heavily on local regulations and paperwork requirements. This is an important factor that any buyer would need to verify before committing to the purchase. From a restoration perspective, the 1965 Oldsmobile 98 is both appealing and challenging. On one hand, parts availability for classic GM vehicles is generally decent, and the car itself has a strong enthusiast base. On the other hand, the sheer size and complexity of a full restoration can make it a significant investment in both time and money. Stylistically, the 98 models from this era are known for their long, elegant body lines, prominent chrome trim, and distinctive mid-1960s design language. Even a non-running example can still visually represent the luxury aspirations of American car design during that period. Overall, my impression is that this 1965 Oldsmobile 98 is a true restoration project with potential, but also with clear challenges. The non-running condition, missing title, and lack of detailed mechanical information mean it is not a casual purchase. However, for the right enthusiast who appreciates large classic GM luxury cars, it could serve as a solid foundation for a full restoration, provided the body and frame are in genuinely good condition.